So for all the students who are applying for masters and PhDs in universities abroad, one thing which is important is that you should be very clear about what you are entering, and that is what the universities want to know. So if you're applying for research, then you should actually be inclined towards that area, and it's very important that you're clear about your area, what area you need to apply to. And once you're clear about your area, which you will be after doing several projects under different professors, so that is one thing which I recommend. Go for various projects because you don't know what you actually like. So maybe even at the end of your fourth year you're not clear, but at least it'll be one step towards knowing what you like. So I would recommend doing a lot of projects under professors, and if you happen to like an area, then you should uh, really make yourself strong in that area. So do courses in that area. Say you like computer architecture, then do all possible courses which can be relevant to that area. Talk to professors. And so one important thing in your application will be your letter of recommendations. So it's really nice if you have good rapport with your professor, so because that will then show in your recommendation. Besides that, your CGPA, your overall performance is also important. So it's not like if you are like one area you can just ignore the other areas. But yeah, CGPA is one of the areas, and if you're applying for the best of the universities like MIT or Stanford, then yes, they do look at your CGPA as well. So it is important that you maintain a certain level of overall performance. One more thing which you should try for is an internship outside your university, and in a university which is generally better than your own university, because it is preferred to have a recommendation from a university which is not your university, because generally it may happen that the prof just know you personally and they give you good recommendation. And besides that, not just the recommendation, it will give you a very good exposure to the kind of work which is happening in your area. And generally when you go for some other place, you get that feel of how your life will be as a postgrad student. So I would recommend that you try for good research internships, and which are somewhere outside your own university and some better place, maybe abroad, where you're planning to apply. The next thing is to try for having good publications, but it's not a it's not a compulsory condition for entering a good university, because the kind of projects you do is what matters, the kind of work which you have done. But if you have publications, that's definitely a plus. Besides that, what generally is seen is, are you the first author or the second author, or what kind of contribution did you actually make into that paper. So it's not like you were just like the fourth author, fifth author, or it is a very trivial paper. So that wouldn't have. So even if you have 3 or 4 publications, you may not end up entering any good university. But if you have a quality of work, then that will definitely add up to your profile. So the first step towards applying for any university is giving GRE and TOEFL exams. These are basic English exams, and these are not like if you have a excellent score, then you will definitely make into the university. But it's more like a cut-off criteria. If you have poor scores, then that will definitely have a negative impact on your profile. So it is important to prepare for these exams, and I feel 1 month of intensive prep is enough for such exams. One thing I would suggest BTech students is get over with these exams as soon as possible, because then you will have a lot on your mind later on, finding the universities and other application steps. So I would suggest that just give your GRE as soon as possible, because then it takes time to send those score to the universities as well. I gave my GRE in August when the deadline of applications is in December. But if you have your December free in your third year, when your third year first semester, then you can give your GRE even in that time. So the steps to follow in preparation of GRE. I would say vocabulary is an important parameter in preparation. For us engineering students, I think maths is pretty trivial. So it is very easy to score full in maths. In fact, I would say it is important to score full in maths, because you can't lose marks there if you want an excellent score. And for English, understanding the language is an important parameter. You can mug up all the words there are, but if you don't understand the meaning of the comprehensions and essays, then it's difficult to score well in the exam. So for that, you have to solve a lot of practice papers. Of course, the first step is in building your vocabulary. That will take like the first 20 days or 15 days of your 1 month preparation. But after that, you should give as many papers and practice tests as possible. So for vocabulary, I follow the Barron's Guide. And there are various other sites online where you can find these word lists. So there are 600 words word lists. there is 1,000 word Barron's word list, there is 3,000 words. So it's up to you how much you can finish. I did around 1,000 words, and I feel that is sufficient to score 330 plus. Besides that, test series are available at princetonreview.com. Even Barron has its own test series. ETS is the official site for GRE, and they have other test series. So it's important that you give those tests, because it's a really long exam, and you have to like, it's a test of your patience as well, because you have to read a lot of comprehensions and then solve them, understand them properly. So I would suggest that giving exams or test series is pretty important. TOEFL is a relatively easier exam. English is pretty easy. Once you have given GRE, I would suggest give TOEFL after GRE and within a week's gap if possible, so that your vocabulary, your words are, like, you remember the words. And so in TOEFL they test your speaking skills, and then they give you listening exercises also. So a professor, say, gives a lecture. It's a video of a professor giving a lecture, and then you have to understand the lecture and answer a few questions after the video. So TOEFL is relatively easy, and once you have cracked, I think, your GRE, TOEFL is pretty easy, and it's almost the same prep. I did nil preparation for TOEFL. So GRE is important to it's important to score well in GRE. So this was about building your profile. Now, once you have decided to apply for universities, the next is the application procedure. So while applying for universities, the first step is to finalize the universities you will be applying to. And believe me, this is the most important and most difficult choice to make. So you must be able to analyze your profile, whatever your profile is. There are several sites like MSN US and various other sites which help you analyze your profile, like based on your CGPA, your projects, your internships. And once you have decided that, so there are sites which give you university rankings, and rankings pertaining to your particular area as well. So those sites are very helpful. So I would suggest that you shouldn't just apply to all the best universities. That is something we want to do, but then in the end you should have a safe option. So the universities are generally divided into tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 and something like that. So you should choose a few universities in every tier, and so there must be a few universities which are your dream universities, but I would suggest that add some fallback options as well. And while searching for these universities, you must look at the professors, the work they do, how good the university is in your particular area. So if you're applying for PhD, the university is not as important as your professor. So if you feel you can really click with that particular professor, then you should apply to that university. And one important thing in PhD application is that it's good to mail the professor beforehand, because even if your profile is really good, if the prof doesn't have a vacancy, that would harm your money and your one university is gone. So you should talk to the professor if he has a vacancy or not. Does he think that you can make into that university? And sometimes professors reply, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they remember your name, this person mailed to me, and that adds a personal touch to your profile. So that is a really important thing to do. Even master student can mail professors, but it's not as important as when you are applying for a PhD. So now for master students, while choosing the universities, definitely the university ranking is the most important, because ultimately you will be going and doing a few courses there, maybe a little bit of research work, and after that, what kind of placement scenario does the university have, what other options, like Stanford has a really great startup culture, and the location is also very important, where the university is. If it's in a very remote location, then even if the university is very good, you may face some problems in your placements and stuff like that. But all these things to keep in mind while applying is a bit difficult. The first and most important thing is to choose the professors and the kind of work which is happening in your particular area. So one point I would like to add is that you should ask your professors and discuss with them before choosing the universities, because your professors generally know other professors in that area, and they have a pretty good idea what kind of work and what kind of people are working in that area. So it's important that you discuss with your professors, you make the short list, and then you can ask your professors if it's a nice university or not. And that is something I found helpful. So after you have chosen the university and the professors, the next step is your statement of purpose. So statement of purpose is a really important parameter in your application, and I would suggest that get over with your statement of purpose as soon as possible. Like, don't stretch it to the last deadline day, and it is not, your statement of purpose is not written in a single day. You'll have to give some time, think about what you actually believe in, what you want to portray. So one thing which I see students doing is they write a lot of technical details about themselves in your SOP, in their SOP. But I would suggest that that is something which you already mentioned in your resume. What you should mention is what you actually learned from a project, or what drew you towards that area, what you really like in your area, and why would you want to work under any XYZ professor that you are applying to. So your SOP should have a really personal touch, and you shouldn't just copy SOP from various sites which are or various SOPs which are available online, because the committee will very easily know that it is a copied SOP. They read hundreds of SOP every year. So you should write the first draft on your own, then add things as you feel like, and then get it reviewed from, say, your seniors or other people around you. So that is also an important thing, to get your SOP reviewed from people. And besides that, the next important thing is your letters of recommendation. So as I suggested, you should have a good rapport with your professor, and if you have really worked well, then you don't need to worry about the letter of recommendation. The only thing is it should read before the deadline. For that, you just need to tell your professor, and some professors say that you write the draft for the letter of recommendation and they write the stuff, but I believe if you have done great work, then the professor will be more than happy to write it himself.
Yeah.
Generally, the deadlines for MS PhD applications is around 15th of December, and I would suggest that you finish your applications by around, say, end of November, and then keep reviewing that application, and you can ask people around you or the professors to review your application. But it shouldn't be a last moment work, because it's a really important decision to make, and so you should be done with it beforehand. And your SOP should be done by the end of November. Your letter of recommendation will be, your prof will take care of that. And besides that, you have to name the professors, which you will already have chosen. So that's it. So one important thing which is on the mind of students while applying for postgraduate studies is the funding opportunities that are available. So as an electrical and computer science student, I can give you a brief about the possibilities in EECS, and I think that's more or less the same for every other engineering department. So for PhD students, more like, because nobody can pay for 5 years of studies, almost every PhD student gets a RATA or scholarship from the university. Some universities give you the option of a fellowship in the first year, so you can go in your first year and decide the professor you want to work with. Other universities don't have that much freedom, and you are allotted a professor from the list of professors you mentioned in your application form, and those are the people who will then fund your future studies.
Yeah, go.
For masters, the universities do not provide funding opportunities that liberally, and so what students generally do is, in their second year of masters, they generally apply for TRA positions for the courses they did in their first year, and that generally covers their tuition and provides additional stipend, and that is almost sufficient for your study. For example, in Stanford, the cost for a quarter, and there are 3 such quarters in a year, so the cost for a quarter is around $15K US, and one of the quarters, I think, is covered by your internship, which you'll do in the end of your first year, and the remaining quarters, the 3 quarters in your second year, are generally covered by RShip or TAship. There are also other fellowships which are granted to students performing excellently over there. And besides that, there are sites online where you can see a list of scholarships specifically for women or specifically for international students, and you can apply to these these scholarships while you are applying for universities as well. So they can help you fund your universities. These are difficult to crack, but it's a good opportunity if you get these fellowships. So besides all this application procedure stuff, I think it's important to find what differentiates you from all the thousands of students which will be applying to the same university. Everybody has a good CGPA, everybody has a great profile, internships, research experience, good LORs. There are several students with that. But if you can portray your profile with a differentiator, something which is really special about you, or something which you have done out of the league, then that really adds credit to your profile. Small things, like you can create a great web page of yours, add stuff, not just academic stuff, but extracurricular stuff that you have done, because you never know what attracts the attention of the professor. And such stuff really helps. And while you're mailing a professor, say you can add a link to your webpage, and if he really likes your work and your profile, then he may go about and select you. So such little things really add up. So I think I'll summarize that. All the best.